Hello and welcome back to the channel. This time we're working on the Vauxhall Zafira. I'm quite pleased because it means I'm inside the car, staying a little bit warmer because the weather in the UK here is getting pretty cold. And this time we're looking at the gear stick because I've been driving the car recently, not driving it as much as I have been due to COVID, but what I'm finding is the gear stick is actually getting harder and harder to move. It's getting quite sticky, so I suspect it's one of the linkages inside here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look, see if we can figure out what's going on. So first things first, what you do is you pull this access panel off. Now this hides the OBD port, but it also exposes two Torx screws. I'll try and get in for closer and I'll show you. So we need to remove those because that then lets us take this plastic panel off. So let me find the right Torx bit and we'll get that. So it was Torx 20 to remove those, and you can see that's now released that, so we can take it off. Now I do point out that on Vauxhalls it is really handy to have a set like this with a combination of screwdriver heads, Torx bits, things like that, because so much on Vauxhalls are Torx or Star or that kind of thing, so this sort of kit comes in really handy. You see there's little plastic clips that you just push, so we can get the main plastic piece out of the way. We'll just leave that like that for now, and we can take a look. I thought I'd get you in there for a closer look. So you can see here, this is the spring, this is the centering mechanism. You can see there's two halves to it, and if I move the gear stick left to right, you can see going left, the lever comes up, and then it uses this spring here to push it back to centre, and then right, and actually that one isn't returning as well. So you can see the left has got quite a positive movement back. Right, it's a much slower movement, so it does seem like it's related to this. Now, feeling the spring tension, the spring, oops, there goes the light. The spring actually feels pretty good. It's pretty tough to move, so I don't think the problem is the spring. So my suspicion is that it's all the moving joints starting to seize up and get dry, because obviously this white grease here over time does start to wear out. So I think the problem I've got is in these little ball joints here and here, because the other alternative is it's the same problem down at the gear stick or in the linkages or in the actual cables that you can see just disappearing off to the bottom of the shot. So I'm going to take a look at that, see if I can find out what it is, and I'll come back. So this piece is quite fiddly. What you do is, let's put it in neutral, and what we're doing is, we're releasing. Very difficult to get the camera, trust me, it's difficult to see, never mind get a camera to show. There you can see the white clips. Now those white clips at the rear have two little hooks on them that hook at the back of the linkage. If I move it across, no, you still can't see it. If I lift it up, like I say, it's almost impossible to see yourself, so never mind what the camera's getting. Now you can just see the white goes to the very back of the linkage. And what you've got to do is there's a little hook just there that you need to lift, and you've got to be very careful because obviously you don't want to snap these as well. So let's put this back into neutral, and I think the best way of doing this will actually be from the rear. So you can see long thin screwdriver down the back to just push the white clip, and it's not completely coming off, we're just moving it to the next notch, which, there we go, which frees it. So I'll try and show you again because it is quite fiddly and it's not that obvious. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Let's just try and get the screwdriver. This one's harder to get the screwdriver down onto. Almost. Let's try it from another angle. No, can't get it from the other angle. So let's try this again. There it goes. There, it's pinged. Right, so what we've got now is gear stick in neutral and the cable's released. So now let's test. Now you can see this is moving perfectly. The self-righting mechanism, really free. You can see all the linkages and the movements are working perfectly. So what we've done is we've eliminated anything here. So it's not at this end where we've got the problem. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at the turret, which is in the engine bay. But before we do that, now we've got these two released, what we want to do is we want to lock the gear stick. So to lock the gear stick, you can see here there's a little lever mechanism. You pull the gear stick all the way to the left, pressing the reverse release switch, and when you've done that, move it around until that little locking pin engages, like that. The gear stick is now locked in position for us to do our work. So let's head into the engine bay and take a look in there. Remove the battery and the battery tray. With the battery tray removed, we can see part of the gear linkages. There's one there, and the other one is just up where my finger is there, just under the cable. Now the first thing that I've noticed, if I pull the coolant pipe out of the way, the first thing I've noticed is, you see this wiring loom here, this big black cable, that's actually rubbing against the turret, which isn't good. And actually, if I pull it along a little bit, you can see, or at least I can see, no you can't, never mind, that it's actually been rubbing against this wiring loom. So first things first is we really need to work out where that wiring loom should go, because I suspect that's loose and it's not fastened somewhere, and that should be well clear because this is a moving part. This moves backwards and forwards, because you can actually see as well the bottom wheel here doesn't look in great shape actually. running along this runner, and this is what the levers push and pull. You can see there's the gear selection. As I move it up and down and in and out, you can see the different position. Now actually that feels pretty loose to me. That turret looks like it's moving. Now it all looks a bit dried up though, so my suspicion is one of two things. One, I think maybe now I've got both cables freed up. You can see they just pop out of their position, and what I can do is manipulate these by hand. Now they do feel a little bit rough running actually, so I think again what I'm going to do, get some lubricant in the cables, help free them up. But what it's let me do is it now lets me move the selector turret freely by hand, and actually it feels pretty free to me. Nothing there that's causing me concern, so it makes me think that it is actually the cables that are the issue. Now I'm going to try and just add some lubricant to them, and hopefully that will solve the problem. Now the fact that it gets worse when the car is hot does suggest to me that it's the cables that are the problem. As the cables warm up, expansion, and they get a bit more sticky. So that is my guess. The other option is that there's an issue with the gearbox, but it still selects all the gears fine. So I don't think there's anything major there. Now just something to point out is when we're finished with this, we need to put it back in the correct position. So I'll show you the I'll show you the alignment hole. Here you can see the two alignment holes, obviously out of position, but you can see the hole on the turret just above the black cap, and to the left of it is the locking point. So when we do come to put this back together, what we do is move the gear selector into position and put a 5mm drill bit in and make sure it goes all the way through that and into the selector, and that means that we've got that in the correct place. And as you remember, we locked the gear stick into place. That is so that they are both matched in the correct place. We can then clip and lock the cables back in place again. So that's how we do the reverse of that. So what I'm going to do is let's grease up the cables and the ball joints and things like that, and hopefully that's going to solve our issue. So you can see I've put some of the white lithium grease into the ball joints. I've tried to wipe the excess off, but I'm also leaving a bit in there to work its way inside. I've also used a silicone lubricant on the cable ends down the bottom. Now, because we're now locked in the engine compartment and in here, what we can now do is we can clip the levers back in, so just push them in. There's one, and they just clip back into place, and that's now got the cables in the correct position. So what we can do is we'll go to the engine bay first. And let's just remove our 5mm drill bit from the turret. So that's now released. And we can now release the clip here. And now what I can do is I can check and make sure that the gears go, that the shifter goes through all the gears to make sure that the positions are okay. 4th, 5th and 6th. This is the M32 gearbox, so it's the 6-speed, and reverse as well, all the way left, and I can feel that they're going through all the positions fine. The centering's still not as strong as I expect though, so whether this is going to make much difference or not, once obviously all of the silicone has worked its way in, I'm not sure. If so, then I think it's going to be a cable replacement. So I think for now what I'll do is I'll give it a trial run, see how I get on, but we'll follow this up in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. More videos on the way very shortly, so please do subscribe and pop a comment and a like down below if you've liked what you've seen. And yeah, maybe not a fix, but possibly progress. We shall see.